Yo, 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 how's it going, everyone? I'm sorry for the hiatus in video making, but school started back up again, and I usually need to take the first few weeks seriously in order to get ahead in my studies. And I know that's reminiscent of my past video, but I just like to say it again, so sorry for that. But anyway, Mr. Normal is back, and today we have some gameplay of Syndicate for you, and at the same time, I also have a very special guest. Funny thing is, many of you already know her, and in fact, you know me, probably, because of her. And so I am eternally indebted to her. And so yeah, hello Strangelove.
Hi everybody.
So today, since we have an interesting guest, I thought we'd take advantage of that and talk about something a little more close to home, something we all use on a daily basis, and yet I don't think many of us really think about it very often. And that thing, without it, there would be no society as we know it, there'd be no civilization, there wouldn't be any technology, no art, religion, music, there wouldn't even be any science. Of course, that something that I'm talking about is language. Now, Strangelove, I know you personally have an interest in language. Would you like to tell us something about it, or let's talk about your major? Aren't you majoring in something called linguistics?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Do you mind giving us a quick description of what linguistics is before we begin?
Okay. Well, linguistics formally is the scientific study of language. So anything that has to do with language is what linguists pretty much deal with.
So is it like knowing a bunch of languages?
Not quite. That's actually a common misconception that people have about linguists. A lot of people think you have to be a polyglot in order to study languages, and that's not the case. There's actually sort of an internal joke that linguists have. They say asking a linguist how many languages they know is like asking a doctor how many diseases he has, because you wouldn't expect a doctor to have the diseases that he studies in order to understand them.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. That's quite interesting. So I bet you'll be able to give us some interesting insights into our topic then. So, speaking of our topic, what exactly is a topic for today? Well, I already said language, but more specifically, language acquisition, or how we come to have language in the first place. So, Strangelove, did you want to start us out on this topic?
Sure. Well, there are many different ways people have tried to answer this question. Evolutionary linguists try to look at the communication patterns in animals and compare it to our language to see if there are any similarities, and in doing this, they're revealing possible precursors to a language faculty, or if not exactly a language faculty, at least doing such research may lead to insight in how we develop language. There's also neurolinguistics, which looks at neuronal patterns related to language.
Yes, yeah, see, well, I think that's the best way to go. I mean, what better way to understand how we have come to have language than to look in the brain? You know? Well,
language is dynamic and is inherently social, so to understand language we can't ignore interactive components of language use. Looking at the brain is important, by all means, so don't get me wrong, but we miss important ingredients if we just look at neuronal connections all day. We're social creatures, so we require interaction, and language plays a role in this.
So, let me get this straight. So you're saying that we're missing data if we simply try understanding language purely at the neuronal level?
Yeah, more or less. Especially if we're trying to understand how language arose in the first place. The way our ancestors interacted probably played a crucial role in the development of language, and in evolutionary linguistics, language is seen as a trait that's key to survival. So how we came to have this trait is what a lot of linguists are trying to understand. Whether the faculty of language is sort of a genetic revolution happening over like a long period of time, or a process that took millions of years, or if it happened all at once. All these ideas have been promoted one way or the other.
Yeah, you do say the word trait, so language to me is quite complex, and it seems so dynamic in the ways that it can be used. So for example, we can write poetry, we can sing songs, we tell jokes, hell, we even yell at people on Xbox Live quite often, and we talk like in the ways that we're doing right now on a YouTube video. Now, it seems that language isn't simply, a trait in the sense that eye color is a trait or brown hair. So how can something so complex be selected for if it isn't simply one thing? So I guess my question is, do you think language as language was selected for in full, or were there many tangential traits being selected for which resulted in language?
I would say that language is an accumulation of traits working in harmony, and it results in this miraculous phenomena that works really well. We have really intricate brain structures, and it pairs perfectly with our speech organs, and our inner ears are set up in a way that perfectly decodes human speech, and it all comes together in this great thing of language.
But is it really all that great? I mean, often we miscommunicate. I would say there's more miscommunication than real communication.
What do you mean by that?
Oh.
Like, how would you quantify instances of communication versus miscommunication?
Well, I mean, even if we can't quantify it, there's no doubt that miscommunication occurs at an alarming rate.
Yeah, there's no doubt that there's miscommunication on a lot of fronts, but our kind of miscommunication, rather, is usually on a more abstract level than other animals, and maybe it was overcoming this abstractness that helped make language as complex as it is, or it just simply reflects our level of cognitive development since we acquired language.
So, I'm just trying to clarify. So, in other words, the very fact that we have the capacity to miscommunicate is like a sign of its complexity, of language's complexity?
I would say so. Throughout our evolutionary history, abstractions may have been the building blocks in developing our language beyond primitive calls and signals.
So see, that's actually pretty interesting, because it's something that I think about just beyond this, just on my own time, like the notion of lying. So what about lying? Though that's different from miscommunication, I know. There seems to be a formal similarity between them. When you talk about calls and signals, we don't really think that calls and signals can be lies in any of that sense, or can they?
Well, the difference between miscommunication and lying depends on the intentions of the speaker.
Yeah, well, okay, so like what I'm saying is that once calls and signals no longer reference anything in the immediate moment, like a male bird warning other birds of a predator, it seems to always be there at that specific moment. Now, in order to abstract away from that, this level of abstraction, the kind you were talking about, those building blocks, then that might be the first steps to language.
And yeah, that's actually one of the things that linguists have determined makes human language distinct from other forms of communication in animals. It's this ability to temporally displace ourselves through our language. And it seems, as far as we can tell, no other animals exhibit this ability.
Well, that kind of reminds me of the quote from the philosopher Schopenhauer said that animals are the present incarnate. Yeah. Well, so what we have so far then is this notion that in our evolutionary past, there had to be, or at least it seems reasonable to suspect, that we had to abstract calls as signals away from their immediate context.
Right. And this might be controversial, but it's possible that the onset of a primitive language played a role in our cognitive growth as a species. And sometimes people say that we're smart and therefore we have language, but it's completely possible that we have language and that's why we're so smart.
Well, some of us anyway.
Right.
Well, I imagine we can talk about the subject for hours, especially with someone like you. And it's unfortunate that we have to limit ourselves on how long we can talk, because we hardly even scratch the surface of the nature of language.
That's
yeah, and how we've come to even have language in the first place. I mean, at least we got to briefly discuss a possible scenario in which language could have emerged. So, I'd like to thank you for the conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and hopefully you all enjoyed it too. Hopefully you also enjoyed the gameplay of Syndicate. And I find, I find this game very refreshing because it's something beyond the everyday Modern Warfare 3 and Battlefield that plague the YouTube charts, what I see anyway. And so, is there anything else you'd like to say, Strange? Or
thanks for watching and listening, you guys. I like talking about linguistics, so if you're still interested in hearing more, then let me know. I can do another commentary like this or something.
Yeah, maybe on your page too.
Yeah, maybe.
We can have these kind of conversations too. I'd have to
depends on the feedback we get on this one.
Exactly. So, alright then. So, to all those 10 or so people watching this, we'd like to say good night, good morning, and fuck you!